Trump's latest tariff hike has sent shockwaves through America, a 125% import duty that is already crushing Amazon, US sellers, and millions of everyday shoppers. This isn't a policy debate anymore, this is a direct hit on wallets, businesses, and families. Products that once shipped cheaply from China are now seeing prices jump overnight. Amazon, one of the biggest importers of Chinese-made goods, has reportedly slashed orders from Chinese factories, leaving sellers scrambling for inventory and customers staring at skyrocketing costs. Think about essentials like phone chargers, kitchen tools, clothes, even electronics, the small, everyday items that dominate Amazon's marketplace. Those items are now at risk of disappearing from listings or coming back at double or triple the price. And this is not speculation, reports confirm Amazon is already cutting back on orders, with some sellers seeing their product pipelines completely frozen. Trump has framed this as a move to protect American manufacturing, but the immediate reality is brutal, sellers are being wiped out, and American families are footing the bill. Reports from outlets covering the trade shock reveal that small and medium-sized Amazon businesses are facing supply chain chaos, with many warning they may shut down entirely. Sellers who built their livelihoods around affordable Chinese imports now face a nightmare scenario where shipping in products costs more than they can sell them for. And here's the kicker, even US companies that rely on parts made in China, from Apple accessories to Tesla components, are caught in the same trap. This tariff doesn't just target Chinese goods, it ricochets across the entire American consumer economy. For years, Amazon has built its dominance on cheap imports that could be shipped directly to American doorsteps. Now, with tariffs more than doubling, that model is imploding in real time. Sellers say margins are evaporating, listings are being pulled, and customers are abandoning carts because of sticker shock. Entire product categories could vanish from Amazon's front page because they can no longer compete on price. This is not just about luxury products or high-end gadgets. It's about groceries, household basics, clothing, pet supplies, and the low-cost goods that millions depend on every day. Trump supporters argue that this is a long-term strategy to rebuild US industry, but in the short term, the backlash is growing fast. Critics warn that if inflation was already a problem, these tariffs could ignite a fresh wave of price hikes just before the holiday season, hammering middle-class families the hardest. For small sellers, it's not just higher prices, it's existential. They don't have the cushion to survive months of shrinking margins and collapsing demand. The White House claims the tariffs will force China back to the negotiating table, but Beijing has already signaled that retaliation is coming, raising the threat of a deeper trade war. That retaliation could hit American farmers, automakers, and exporters, creating a vicious cycle where both sides keep raising costs, and consumers end up as collateral damage. Amazon sellers are calling this a death sentence, while economists are warning that the ripple effects could hit everything from Wall Street to the grocery aisle. This is not abstract policy talk, it's a shock that every American with an Amazon account is about to feel. And if the tariff fight escalates, the costs won't stop at online shopping. They'll spread into cars, electronics, food, and the very core of America's consumer economy. The stakes are enormous, and the fallout has only just begun. China immediately fired back, calling Trump's 125% tariffs economic bullying, and warning that retaliation is coming. Officials in Beijing are signaling that they could target American agriculture, technology components, and major US brands that rely heavily on Chinese consumers. This isn't just about trade numbers, it's about dominance in global commerce, and both sides know it. For Amazon, this is a nightmare scenario. Millions of products imported from China are now subject to massive duties, forcing the e-commerce giant to rethink its supply chain strategy almost overnight. Sellers who depended on smooth, cheap imports are scrambling to find alternatives, while customers face higher prices and slower shipping. Electronics, kitchenware, clothing, and small household goods, items that make Amazon convenient and affordable, could vanish from listings or come back with price tags that shock shoppers. The tariffs also put enormous pressure on Chinese sellers who use Amazon as their main platform to reach US consumers. Many are warning that their businesses could collapse entirely if these duties remain in place. Margins are evaporating, inventory is being delayed or cancelled, and some sellers say they may have no choice but to pull their products off the marketplace entirely. Meanwhile, U.S. sellers who rely on these Chinese-made goods are caught in the crossfire. Even companies like Apple or Tesla, which depend on components and assembly in China, feel the ripple effects. Higher import costs don't just hurt Amazon or the sellers, they trickle down to the everyday American consumer. Families buying products online for school, home, or work are suddenly facing sticker shock. Trump's administration is framing this as a strategic move to rebuild American manufacturing and force China back to the negotiating table. But in the short term, the consequences are brutal. Economists warn that inflation could spike as tariffs push up the prices of goods across multiple categories. Retailers and small businesses will struggle to survive under these conditions, and some may be forced to shut down entirely. The timing couldn't be worse, with the holiday season approaching, a period when both shoppers and sellers expect predictable prices and reliable supply. Disruptions caused by tariffs could leave shelves empty, carts abandoned, and consumer confidence shaken. China's response is equally strategic. By threatening targeted retaliation rather than a full-scale trade war, Beijing keeps the pressure on while avoiding immediate confrontation. It could restrict U.S. exports of soybeans, corn, and beef, hitting American farmers at a politically sensitive time. Or it could slow down approvals and logistics for U.S. tech companies operating in China, adding uncertainty to operations for Nvidia, Apple, and Tesla. Every small move sends a signal. America may have initiated the tariffs, but China has the power to make the cost real for businesses and voters alike. The stakes are enormous, and the ripple effects are already spreading through global markets. In short, the 125% tariff is not just a number, it's a shockwave hitting Amazon, U.S. sellers, shoppers, and the broader economy. The next few weeks will reveal how both sides navigate this high-stakes confrontation, but one thing is certain, the fallout is going to be felt in every corner of American commerce, from online shopping carts to corporate boardrooms. Amazon is scrambling. Internally, the e-commerce giant is facing one of its toughest logistical crises in years. Hundreds of product categories that rely on Chinese imports are suddenly at risk of being delayed or cancelled, forcing Amazon's operations team to quickly rethink inventory, shipping, and pricing strategies. Sellers report receiving notices that purchase orders from China are being reduced or outright rejected due to the new tariffs. For many small and medium-sized businesses, these imported products were their lifeline. Now margins are evaporating, and some sellers fear bankruptcy. Products that once sold for $10 to $20 are suddenly going for $40 to $50 because of the combined impact of tariffs, shipping, and overhead costs. Customers notice these spikes immediately, and carts are being abandoned at record levels. Amazon is also caught between competing pressures. On one hand, it must comply with U.S. regulations and adjust pricing to account for tariffs. On the other, it needs to maintain relationships with international sellers who could walk away entirely if profits disappear. Internal sources suggest that Amazon is considering temporary price adjustments, stockpiling certain high-demand items before tariffs hit fully, and even exploring alternative suppliers outside China. But these solutions are costly, complex, and slow to implement, meaning short-term disruptions are inevitable. The company's algorithms, which rely on consistent inventory to drive sales, are struggling to adjust, creating ripple effects across recommendations, fulfillment centers, and advertising campaigns. Meanwhile, U.S. sellers dependent on Chinese imports are sounding the alarm. Many report that their entire business model is at risk, and the holiday season, usually the most lucrative period, is now a looming threat. Sellers are forced to increase prices dramatically, reduce product variety, or halt sales completely. Some are attempting to find domestic alternatives, but American manufacturing cannot scale quickly enough to replace the volume of Chinese goods previously imported at low cost. Even larger sellers with diversified supply chains face delays, increased shipping fees, and eroded profit margins. The consumer impact is immediate and visible. Electronics, home appliances, clothing, pet products, and even kitchen essentials are seeing price spikes that will hit families' budgets hard. Customers accustomed to convenience and affordability may now be forced to shop elsewhere or go without. Economists warn that these disruptions could accelerate inflation, while political analysts point out that American shoppers may blame both the government and large corporations for the sudden price shock. In essence, Amazon and US sellers are caught in a perfect storm. Tariffs are forcing price increases, slowing shipments, and destabilizing supply chains, while customers feel the pinch directly. Every decision Trump's administration makes from here, whether escalating or rolling back tariffs, will determine how deep this crisis runs, and how many businesses and families pay the price. The fallout is already spreading, and the next few weeks could define the future of e-commerce in America. China isn't sitting idle. Beijing has already signaled that it will respond in ways designed to hit US businesses and consumers hard without igniting a full-scale trade war, a strategy that could create months of uncertainty and disruption. Chinese officials have hinted at targeting American agricultural exports, including corn, soybeans, and beef, which could devastate farmers who rely on China as a major buyer. That's millions of dollars in lost revenue, directly affecting rural communities across the US. Beyond agriculture, China can slow or restrict shipments of key technology components critical to US companies like Apple, Tesla, and Nvidia. Any delay or cost increase in these sectors immediately trickles down to consumers in the form of higher prices, longer wait times, and reduced availability of products. China's retaliation strategy is calculated and multi-layered. Rather than matching Trump's tariffs dollar for dollar, Beijing can apply selective pressure that maximizes impact while minimizing political backlash at home. For example, selectively limiting the import of rare earth minerals or critical electronic parts used in manufacturing could cripple US production chains without causing an immediate headline-grabbing trade war. Investors are already nervous, with tech stocks sensitive to any news of potential restrictions or supply chain disruptions. Wall Street analysts warn that even minor escalations could spark volatility across multiple sectors, from semiconductors to consumer goods. The broader implications go beyond business. This is a direct challenge to US global economic leverage. By signaling that retaliation is coming, China is asserting that it can influence markets and policy decisions far beyond its borders. Trump's tariffs, while politically framed as a show of strength, now carry the risk of backfiring. Higher consumer costs, angry voters, and businesses squeezed between Washington's directives and Beijing's calculated responses. This dynamic could redefine the US-China trade relationship for years, as both sides test each other's limits while the world watches closely. For everyday Americans, the impact is already visible. Electronics, home goods, clothing, and even food products are likely to see price increases. Small businesses reliant on Chinese imports face the real possibility of shutdowns, layoffs, or drastically reduced operations. Amazon and other retailers may adjust pricing, restrict stock, or delay deliveries, which will frustrate customers and disrupt commerce nationwide. Economists warn that the combination of tariffs and retaliation could add a new wave of inflation at a time when consumers are already stretched thin. In short, China's warning isn't just rhetoric. It's a strategic move designed to exert maximum pressure on the US economy while testing political resolve. The next steps in this trade conflict will determine whether it escalates into a broader economic confrontation or remains a targeted battle with limited scope. For Trump, Amazon, and every US seller affected, the stakes could not be higher. The decisions made in the coming weeks will define the trajectory of trade, prices, and corporate survival across the nation. The fallout from Trump's 125% tariffs and China's looming retaliation is just beginning, and the consequences could hit Americans in every corner of daily life. Consumers may notice the pinch first at checkout. Electronics, clothing, home goods, and even basic household items could see prices spike dramatically. Families that relied on affordable imports from China may be forced to make tough choices, either paying more or going without certain products entirely. Online shopping carts may be abandoned, while small businesses face the terrifying reality that their profit margins could vanish overnight. Even larger companies, like Amazon, Apple, or Tesla, cannot fully shield themselves from these shocks. The ripple effects extend from retail shelves to corporate boardrooms, disrupting inventory, shipping, and long-term business strategies. Small and medium-sized sellers on Amazon are particularly vulnerable. Many of these businesses operate with razor-thin margins and depend heavily on low-cost Chinese imports to stay competitive. The combination of tariffs and potential Chinese retaliation could force some to shutter entirely, while others may drastically reduce their product variety or hike prices to survive. This could permanently reshape the online marketplace, reducing competition and limiting options for consumers. Economists warn that this disruption could also accelerate inflation, adding pressure to households already struggling with rising costs in other areas such as food, energy, and rent. Meanwhile, China's calculated moves are likely to expand beyond tariffs alone. By targeting U.S. agricultural exports, restricting technology components, or slowing down regulatory approvals for American companies, Beijing can increase pressure without triggering a headline-grabbing trade war. Every action taken in Washington or Beijing now carries a multiplier effect. A small policy shift by the Trump administration could provoke an outsized response from China, and any misstep may be felt across multiple sectors, from technology to agriculture, finance, and consumer goods. Analysts warn that these tensions may not resolve quickly, and the uncertainty alone is enough to influence market behavior, corporate investment decisions, and even political sentiment in the U.S. The stakes are enormous for both sides. Trump's strategy aims to force China to negotiate on U.S. terms, but the immediate human and economic costs are real and measurable. Shoppers, small businesses, and workers are already feeling the heat. If China escalates further, the effects could become widespread, impacting global supply chains, investor confidence, and international trade flows. The next few weeks will be critical in determining whether this conflict remains contained or spirals into a broader confrontation that affects not only U.S.-China relations but the entire global economy. In short, Trump's 125% tariffs are not just a political headline, they are a high-stakes economic gamble with real consequences for Amazon, U.S. sellers, consumers, and global markets. Every American, from the person ordering a daily essential on Amazon to multinational corporations planning production, is now watching as this trade battle unfolds. The fallout will be immediate, tangible, and unavoidable. This is the new reality of U.S.-China trade under Trump: high risk, high stakes, and far-reaching.